Everybody wants to pay their mortgage off early, but people just don't understand what happens to the money when they send it to the mortgage company. I was having a conversation with a client of mine who is borrowing about $430,000 and told me he was going to come into some money in the next 3 to 5 years and said he wanted to pay that extra money towards the mortgage and what would actually happen. I was like, well, cool. Whenever you get it, you can pay towards the mortgage company. Truly doesn't matter if you send it earlier or later because it's going to have real no impact on you. And he was like, what do you mean? Shouldn't I send the money to the company as early as possible to shorten the time? And I was like, no, it's not significantly different if you do that. He said, well, why do people send payments to the mortgage company early, like a lot? And I was like, well, let me just show you your amortization schedule. And he said, okay. So I showed him the amortization schedule, and this is what I showed him. And you can see over here, he was borrowing initially $430,000. He was surprised by how much principal and interest he was paying every year. And it is kind of shocking when you first look at it. So I was like, okay, well, if you're getting about $200,000, you can see your balance going down every single year. So what you've got to do is you've got to look on your amortization schedule to see when you'll owe $200,000. So we looked at the amortization schedule, and basically at about 22 years, he owes 205. So I said, between now and the next 22 years, if you send your mortgage company $200,000, when you get to this point, it'll be paid off. And then he said to me, well, what happens if I pay the mortgage company early in the process, in year 2 or 3? I was like, well, if you pay the mortgage company in year 2 or 3, you'll take the balance from 419 or 413, $200,000 less. It'll be 213, 219, and you'll keep making payments. And at the end of the day, when you get down to roughly over here, 22 years, your mortgage will be paid off in full. He's like, well, don't I save any money? I was like, yeah, you save money. I was like, by sending them the money all these years that you would have paid, you don't pay this interest, so you save time. And he's like, well, that makes no sense to me. What happens to the money that I sent them if I sent them that money in year 2 or 3? I was like, well, they'll hold the money and apply it to the balance. And when it'll have an impact on you is when your balance gets down to the extra money that you sent them. And he's like, but isn't there an advantage for sending them the money early? I was like, it's insignificant. He's like, well, why don't people just put the extra money that they want to give the mortgage company in a bank and get interest and then apply it when their savings matches the balance? I was like, you could do that and you would have the interest, or you'd probably do better. There's no real advantage to letting the bank hold the money for, I don't know, 10, 15 years.